If only I had seen the signs earlier. If only I had taken my own advice. Dr. Olivia Carter sat in her office, staring at the couple in front of her. The woman, eyes red from crying, clenched her fists while the man shifted uncomfortably in his chair. They were another broken pair, another love story turned sour. Olivia had seen hundreds like them. She had guided many through divorces, always telling them the same thing: if a marriage drains you more than it fulfills you, leave before it destroys you. She believed in her own advice. She had lived by it. But what the world didn't know was that the very man sitting across from her, the one her client was trying to divorce, was her own husband. Daniel Carter. The room was suffocating with tension. Daniel kept his gaze low, avoiding her eyes. Olivia's heart pounded, but she masked it well. Her hands remained folded on the desk, her voice steady. "Tell me, Mrs. Carter," Olivia addressed the woman, forcing a professional tone. "What has led you to this decision?" The woman exhaled shakily. "He lies. He cheats. He makes me feel invisible." Olivia's stomach twisted. The words cut through her like a blade because they weren't just her client's truth, they were her own. She had known for months that Daniel was unfaithful. She had seen the late-night texts, the lipstick stains on his shirts, the fake business trips. And now, here he was, in her office, clueless that his own wife was the counselor helping his mistress divorce him. It should have been a victory. She should have felt relief, knowing the universe had finally handed Daniel the karma he deserved. But instead, Olivia felt something unexpected, a deep, haunting emptiness. She took a deep breath. "I understand your pain," she said, her voice almost shaking. "Sometimes, the best way to love yourself is to walk away." Daniel shifted in his chair, finally looking up. Their eyes met. For the first time in months, he really looked at her. And for the first time in months, Olivia realized she wasn't done punishing him yet. Olivia maintained her composure as she watched Daniel squirm in his seat. He had always been good at pretending to be a devoted husband, pretending to be busy at work, pretending he wasn't the kind of man who would betray his wife. But here he was, sitting in front of her, tangled in his own web of deceit. "Mrs. Carter," Olivia addressed the woman, "do you have any evidence of your husband's infidelity?" The woman's lips trembled before she reached into her purse and pulled out a stack of printed photos. She slammed them on the table, and Olivia hesitated before picking them up. There, in full color, were pictures of Daniel wrapped around a younger woman, kissing her in a dimly lit restaurant, sneaking into a hotel. Olivia felt the air leave her lungs. This was more than just any affair. She recognized the woman instantly. It was her assistant. Her hands tightened around the photos, but she refused to let her emotions show. Instead, she leaned back and asked in a calm voice, "Daniel, do you have anything to say?" Daniel's face turned pale. He glanced at the photos, then at his wife. He had no idea she already knew. He stuttered, "I can explain." Olivia let out a slow, humorless chuckle. "I'd love to hear it." The client, Daniel's soon-to-be ex-wife, looked at Olivia strangely. She didn't understand why the counselor seemed so personally invested. But Olivia didn't care. She had spent years listening to Daniel's lies. Now, she wanted to hear how far he'd go to save himself. Daniel swallowed hard. It was a mistake. Olivia tilted her head. "A mistake? These pictures are from different dates, different locations." "That's not a mistake, Daniel. That's a pattern." His jaw clenched. He knew he was caught. The other woman sniffled, wiping her eyes. "See?" she said, her voice breaking. "This is why I'm done with him." Olivia smiled, though it wasn't a warm one. "I think you're making the right choice." Daniel shot her a look, but she ignored him. She finished the session like the professional she was, guiding her client toward the inevitable divorce. When it was over, the woman thanked her and left. That's when Olivia finally turned to Daniel. "Get out." Daniel hesitated. "Olivia, Please, let's talk, there's nothing to talk about. She stood up, grabbing the photos and throwing them at him. You slept with my assistant, Daniel. You didn't just cheat, you humiliated me. And the worst part? I'm the one helping your mistress leave you. His face twisted in shock. Wait. You knew? Olivia folded her arms. I knew before you did. For the first time in their marriage, Daniel had nothing to say. After Daniel left, Olivia sat in silence, staring at the city lights from her office window. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt exhausted. She had spent years fixing other people's marriages, but hers had been a slow-burning disaster. She had ignored the signs, hoping Daniel would change. But men like him never did. As she rubbed her temples, nausea rolled through her stomach. She hadn't eaten much all day, and the stress was catching up with her. She reached for the bottle of water on her desk, but as she took a sip, a sudden realization hit her. This wasn't just stress. Her hands trembled as she counted back the weeks in her mind. Her period was late, way too late. No, it couldn't be. Heart pounding, she grabbed her coat and rushed to the nearest pharmacy. She bought 3 pregnancy tests, her hands shaking as she paid the cashier. The moment she got home, she locked herself in the bathroom, took the tests, and waited. Minutes passed like hours. Then, one by one, the results appeared, positive. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. The world tilted around her. She was pregnant, with Daniel's baby. The irony was too cruel. She had spent years telling women to leave toxic marriages, to never let a man trap them. And now, just when she was finally free, she was carrying the child of the man she despised. Tears burned in her eyes. What the hell was she supposed to do now? Olivia stared at the pregnancy tests, her heart pounding. This was a nightmare. How could she be tied to Daniel forever? The man who had lied, cheated, and made a fool of her. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I know about the baby. Let's talk. Her breath hitched. Who the hell knew? Before she could process, there was a knock at her apartment door. She hesitated, then opened it. Standing there, in the dim hallway, was Rachel, her assistant. The same woman Daniel had been sleeping with. Rachel's face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying. Olivia folded her arms. What do you want? Rachel hesitated before whispering, I'm pregnant too. The words hit Olivia like a slap. Pregnant, Daniel's child. Her stomach twisted. She wanted to laugh at the sheer irony of it. Rachel sniffled. I just found out. I didn't know how to tell you. But I need your help. Olivia's anger flared. Help? You slept with my husband, and now you want my help? Rachel wiped her eyes. I didn't know he was married at first. He lied to me. He said he was divorced. Olivia clenched her fists. That was Daniel, always manipulating, always twisting the truth. What do you want from me? She asked coldly. Rachel hesitated before whispering, I need an abortion. But I'm scared. Daniel is already threatening me. A shiver ran down Olivia's spine. Threatening you? How? Rachel swallowed hard. He told me if I got rid of the baby, he'd ruin me. He said he'd make sure I never worked again. Olivia's stomach churned. This wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was about control. Power, and Daniel thought he could manipulate both of them. Not this time. Olivia took a deep breath. Rachel, you don't need to be afraid of Daniel. Rachel looked at her with uncertainty. What do you mean? Olivia grabbed her phone and pulled up a folder labeled Daniel's Lies. Inside were years' worth of evidence, his shady business deals, his offshore accounts, and, most importantly, proof that he had embezzled millions from a major real estate company. We're not just going to leave him, Olivia said. We're going to destroy him. Rachel's eyes widened. How? Olivia smirked. We set him up. The plan was simple but dangerous. Olivia knew Daniel's biggest weakness, his ego. He thought he was untouchable. They arranged a fake business deal using one of Olivia's high-profile clients, someone Daniel had always wanted to impress. The client would record everything, Daniel accepting bribes, admitting to fraud, and discussing his illegal dealings. If this worked, Daniel wouldn't just lose his reputation, he'd go to jail. The night of the setup, Olivia watched from a distance as Daniel confidently walked into the luxury restaurant, thinking he was securing his next big deal. Rachel, wired with a hidden MIC, sat across from him. She played her part perfectly, flirty, naive, eager to help him. Daniel, believing he was in control, let his guard down. People think I play fair, but I don't. You don't get rich by following the rules. Rachel pressed further. So, the money you took, what did you do with it? Daniel chuckled. Moved it offshore. No one will ever find it. The moment he said those words, two men in suits approached the table. FBI, Daniel's face turned white. What the hell is this? The agent held up a recorder. You just confessed to multiple federal crimes, Mr. Carter. Panic flashed in Daniel's eyes as he turned to Rachel. You set me up. Rachel stood up, her voice calm. No, Daniel. You set yourself up. As the agent slapped handcuffs on him, Olivia stepped forward. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Daniel saw her for who she really was, a woman he should have never underestimated. Months later, Olivia sat in her office, running her hand over her swollen belly. The media had eaten up the scandal, real estate mogul exposed by his own wife, and Daniel had been sentenced to 10 years in prison. Rachel had disappeared, choosing to start over in another city. As for Olivia, she had decided to keep her baby, but just as she thought the storm had passed, she received an anonymous letter. It was a single line, written in Daniel's handwriting. You think this is over? It's just beginning. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. Daniel might be in prison, but he wasn't finished with her yet. Olivia reread the letter, her hands trembling. How did Daniel manage to send this from prison? Was this a mind game, or did he still have power even behind bars? She didn't have to wait long for answers. The next morning, a breaking news alert flashed across her phone screen. Former real estate mogul Daniel Carter escapes prison in a shocking turn of events. Her breath caught. Escaped, her mind raced. This wasn't just about revenge, this was about survival. That evening, as she walked to her car, she felt it, someone was watching her. A shadow moved in the distance. She quickened her pace, heart hammering. Just as she reached for her car door, a voice whispered from the darkness, "Miss me?" Olivia spun around, but no one was there. Only the cold night air and the faint scent of Daniel's cologne lingering in the wind. Was he really here? Or was she losing her mind? She locked her doors and sped home, double-checking every window, every lock. She needed help, someone who could protect her and her unborn child. The next day, she visited Detective Marcus Hayes, the officer who had arrested Daniel. Daniel sent me a letter. Now he's escaped. I need protection. Hayes leaned back, stroking his beard. We've been tracking him, but he's always one step ahead. He's not working alone. Olivia's stomach twisted. You mean someone's helping him? Hayes nodded. And we think we know who. He slid a file across the table. Olivia's blood ran cold. Inside was a picture of Rachel. That's impossible, Olivia whispered. Rachel was terrified of Daniel. Hayes crossed his arms. Was she? Or was that all an act? The pieces started fitting together. Rachel had disappeared right after Daniel's arrest. No one knew where she went. Had she been helping him all along? Olivia clenched her fists. She had trusted Rachel. She had let her into her home, into her plans. And now, Rachel had played her just like Daniel had. But why? The answer came that night in the form of another letter, this time slid under her door. You thought you won. You thought you could outsmart me. But Rachel was never yours, Olivia. She was always mine. See you soon. Olivia backed away, heart pounding. He was close. Too close. She grabbed her phone and dialed Hayes. He's coming for me. I need to leave. But before she could finish, the power in her apartment cut out. She wasn't alone. Olivia grabbed a kitchen knife and backed into the shadows. A floorboard creaked. Someone was inside. She held her breath. A silhouette moved in the darkness, then, bam. A door slammed shut. Footsteps. Running, she bolted toward the fire escape, adrenaline pumping. Who was it? Daniel? Rachel? Or someone else? As she reached the alley, headlights flashed in her eyes. A black SUV screeched to a stop, the window rolled down, Rachel sat in the driver's seat. Get in, Olivia. Now. Olivia hesitated. Was this a trap? Rachel's eyes were wild. If you want to live, get in the car. Against every instinct, Olivia climbed in. Rachel sped off, weaving through the city. Explain. Now. Olivia demanded. Rachel exhaled sharply. Daniel's out for blood. He doesn't just want revenge, he wants to ruin you completely. Olivia scoffed. And you expect me to believe you're on my side now? Rachel gripped the wheel. I made a mistake, Olivia. I thought Daniel loved me. But he doesn't love anyone except himself. Olivia eyed her carefully. Then why help him escape? Rachel's jaw tightened. Because he threatened my family. My little brother is sick. Daniel promised he'd help with his medical bills. I had no choice. Olivia wanted to hate her. But deep down, she understood. So why are you helping me now? Rachel glanced at her. Because I realized something. If Daniel wins, we both lose. They didn't have much time. Daniel was coming for Olivia, and he wouldn't stop until he had destroyed her. We need to end this, Olivia said. For good. Rachel nodded. I know where he's hiding. Together, they set a final trap. They leaked false information, letting Daniel believe Olivia was meeting a mysterious contact in an abandoned warehouse, and he took the bait. At exactly midnight, Daniel arrived at the warehouse. Olivia watched from the shadows as he stepped inside, gun in hand. Where are you, Olivia? He taunted. You think you're smarter than me? The doors slammed shut behind him, the lights flickered on, Detective Hayes stepped forward, gun raised. Game over, Daniel. Daniel spun, but it was too late. Armed officers surrounded him. There was no escape this time, he snarled at Olivia. You set me up. Again. She stepped forward, hand on her belly. You never should have underestimated me. 1 month later, Olivia gave birth to a baby girl. She named her Hope. Rachel left the city, starting fresh somewhere new. As for Daniel, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But Olivia knew one thing for sure, she would never be a victim again. As she rocked her baby to sleep, she whispered, "We're free now." Or so she thought, because miles away, in a dark prison cell, Daniel sat with a wicked grin, and he was already planning his next move.
Please subscribe, like, comment and share this video. It means a lot to us. Thank you.